Hey, if you're watching the broadcast, and welcome to Glue Wednesday. Remember, Glue Wednesday is about the fact that Wednesday is not hump day, but it's the middle of a traditional 7-day week to keep the weekend and the week beginning together. So Wednesday is the glue that keeps the week together. And what we need to do in life is not focus on getting over, but keeping it together. And that's what I do. So we've got less than 2 minutes, and I'm just putting in the final notes before we start the broadcast. Going to try to stick to the notes today. Speaking of which, by the way, got my San Francisco Giants mug. That's one of my teams. Hey, I need to see somebody's there, but it doesn't show me who. So welcome. welcome aboard. And I'm also going to try to do my broadcast without the glasses, but y'all know I can't see. I always laugh. I tell people, I say, no, these are not cosmetic. I mean, these are not cosmetic. I can't see. But the key in life is not the visual scene, but the inside scene. That is really what makes the difference in our lives, because how we see ourselves will always make it. Hey, Joe. Man, good. I was just thinking about you last week because I do keep the tradition of Red Fridays, and I got that from your group. So thank you. God bless you. I always appreciate that. Hope y'all having a good time out there with the coffee mugs. Oh, gosh. Yeah, welcome to Glue Wednesday. Yes. Coffee mugs. All right, and whatever I got in there, of course, coffee. In this case, it's just water. But tell Joe, he knows what I like, what we got to fill up with. Okay, we got less than a minute. And then we'll start the broadcast with the full message. Yeah. Yes, it was. I mean, we had an absolute ball. And that's it. And see, that's the thing. For those of you who know, I speak with the military, but not just so much with speaking with the military. When I'm talking about stress release and handling challenges, it's not just about talking about it, but it's about doing it. Hey, Chris. And so that's the thing. Whenever I do my sessions, I'm not up there giving information. I'm living the information. And so as I tell my groups, we may end up laughing and joking during my session. By the end of the session, what they have to realize is that we just did what we were talking about. Where sometimes we think, okay, well, I'm getting this information, but you have to make sure that you're not just getting the information, that you're using and living the information. Okay, that wasn't one of y'all calling, but somebody who didn't know about Glue Wednesday getting started. Hey, Gloria, thank you. Good. Okay, well, anyway, let's get started, because today my topic is perseverance. And obviously we all have an idea of what perseverance is. So I'm not going to, and I put the definition up there in the explanation, the definition, but it's to persist against all, what is it? Persist against all difficult. Oh, I didn't put it up there. My bad. I'll put it up there when I rebroadcast it. But to persevere is to persist as in an undertaking despite the difficulties. And like I said, we tend to know that that's what it is. So what I want to talk a little bit about is not just, I don't want to talk about the difficulties. I don't want to give them power. I want to talk to us about how we can take those difficulties and what we have to do to get to coping strategies. Because it's about how we can show ourselves as persistent and understand who we are. Excuse me. Breakfast. Anyway, and it just so turns out that my first person on the broadcast today was Joe Keller, who's with the who I think she's retired now with the Air National Guard. And what I actually had planned to start out with is a quote that I heard from a chaplain while I was at one of the Air National Guard Yellow Ribbon programs, and that was the story of the Three Little Pigs, where he talked about the moral of the story of the Three Little Pigs is not what type of a house you build, but the fact that the storm is coming. See, so it's not what the house you build, but it's the fact that the storm is coming. And I never forgot that because, hey, April, because I think that makes a huge difference, is that what we have to remember is that every time we turn a corner, there's another storm. After that storm comes, what's coming? Another storm. And so when we look at the topic of perseverance, we have to find ways to recognize the storms that we've been through, and then not just say, oh, okay, that's over, I'm done. No, we have to gear up for the next storm. But I want to tell you, we want to celebrate in between those storms. So there isn't a modicum of, oh, okay, that's over. But it's just not to just release your guards totally, but to figure out how to celebrate it. So what I decided to do was take the word storm, and you know me, I'm an acronym addict. So, but I took storm as a way of us looking at our difficulties, and I broke down storm into different ways, how we look at it and how we can look at it as a way to get to our coping strategies and give ourselves credit for overcoming them. And the first one is the first one, I'm going to give you the letter, and then I'm going to give you how we tend to look at it, the difficulty part, and then I'm going to give you the persistence part, the perseverance part, how we overcome, because I'm not going to over-define the bad part. So the first one is the S, because we tend to look at how we stumble. You know, it doesn't matter how many great things we do in our life, we focus on where we stumble, where our shortcomings were. What I want you to do is focus on your strengths. So when you think about storm, think about the S being for your strengths. What strengths do you have that have kept you persevering and persisting through every storm that you've come into? And what's the number one strength? Focus. What? Focus. Yes, focus, because the number one strength is you. You have to put yourself first. You have to focus on you. My acronym for focus, as many people know, is FOCUS. Finding ourselves creates unlimited success. Focus on you and let other people come into focus. See, when we look at focus in terms of perseverance and storms, sometimes we decide what we want to do, and then someone else is there telling us what we cannot do. When you decide, well, here's, this is my goal in life, there's somebody who's going to say, well, no, you can't do that. You're the wrong size, wrong color, wrong shape, wrong educational background. There's the wrong age. Focus on you and let other people come into focus. You'll see who's there to help you and who's there to hinder you. So that's why you want to focus on your strengths. And then I came up with a term today that my brother Mike is here visiting me, and I was talking to him about our topic, and I said, well, what could I do? What could I say? And I said, what do you mean by persistence? Perseverance. We were talking about it, and as he was talking about it, in my mind, he started talking about what I just said to you about focusing, about the people who give you the negativity and this and that. And I said, in other words, it's called neighbor's noise. Neighbor's noise. What you have to do is recognize that you can have neighbor's noise in your life. Now, the key is the neighbor's noise negative or positive? Because it's all about who you're going to listen to, because everybody's going to have an opinion of what you do. And let's not be upset about that. You have an opinion of what someone else does. See, we've also got to make sure that we find ways to stay focused on the positive, because there's a positive and negative to everything. So you've got to find ways to reconnect yourself and laser focus on that positivity. So neighbors news is one of my new terms. And as we listen to neighbors news, what are your neighbors bringing in? In other words, you have to make sure that you choose your messengers carefully. Remember, and I've always said that to you, because you're somebody's messenger. And it's a domino effect. Once you get a message from someone, you're going to pass it on to someone else. In my speaking life, in my 24 years, almost a quarter of a century of being in the speaking business, I recognize and I take the pressure off of my shoulders when I go on stage, whether my audience is 2, 20, 200, or 2,000. I take the pressure off of myself of needing to reach everyone, because I know that I'm not everyone's messenger. And see, sometimes I think that becomes one of the challenges in our life, is that we think we want to be everybody's messenger. We think that everyone should be listening to us and doing things our way. It can't happen. So again, when I'm standing on the stage and I see the number of people in the audience, I know that everybody has a different angle and there's a different perspective from which they look at life. As I tell people, I look at life from an uncle's perspective. There's someone's an aunt, there's a parent, there's there's someone who's grew up in a big neighborhood, a small neighborhood, large family, small family. So you have to take that pressure off yourself of feeling that you have to reach everyone. And you also, and also as a speaker, I don't know what type of news any member of my audience just got that morning before they came into my session, Or who knows if someone texts them while they were sitting there getting ready to enjoy, and then someone texted, so-and-so has cancer, give me a call. So-and-so was in an accident. And there's nothing you can do but be present in the moment where you are, because you can't do anything about it. So therefore, you're not listening to the speaker. And sometimes that's what we have to recognize, is that someone may not be listening to us. We might not be their messenger in the moment, because what's going on in their life can't allow them to focus and absorb what we're saying. So we don't need to be insulted that they're not paying attention to us, because we get upset and indignant. They're not paying attention to me. And sometimes you're just not in position to be their messenger, because they're not in position to receive. So that's why I say you focus on your strengths. You make sure that you're delivering the right message, so that when they need the message, they'll have the right information to refer back to. So choose your messengers carefully. And in fact, that's why I wore this t-shirt. It says, I'm not a nag, I'm a motivational speaker, right? Well, one of my messages is my sister's a teen, Z, and I almost said my older sister, but I've got two sisters and she's the older one, but she's still younger than me. But she bought me this t-shirt years ago, and when we were in a store, and so I just love reading it, because isn't that what you do as parents? Isn't that what you do as supervisors? And sometimes as friends, you don't nag people. You're a motivational speaker. You're giving them your advice, your opinion. That's why it's important for us to switch that gear and be the one. Are we listening to that person? Is that our motivational speaker, or is that a nag? What kind of neighbor's noise are they bringing you? And then finally, on strength and on focusing ourselves, I think it's important that you control your circle. Control your circle of friends. And sometimes you say, well, isn't that kind of unfair? You think you're better than somebody? No, think about it. The athletes, the celebrities, entrepreneurs, you have to control your circle of friends, or military members, because the things that people are saying to you will impact how far you go. Athletes can't have everybody as their friends anymore. One of the, and thinking about celebrities, one of the people I like to quote is Michelle Obama. When before they actually ran for president, and they ran, and that was one of the key points that they made, is that it wasn't Barack running, it was the Obamas running. And so I read an article in Ebony magazine years ago, where she said to him, she said, okay, if we're going to run, the first thing I'm going to do is put in place a no new friends policy. And that's for their life now, a no new friends policy. Because think about it, think about any of the presidents. And again, I was using athletes and celebrities. Their real quality friends are the people that they probably grew up with. Most of the people they meet now are going to have ulterior motives. Not all necessarily bad, but you don't know. A sheep's in, a devil in sheep's clothes, a wolf in sheep's clothes. So you don't know, and that's really part of what happens in our life. So again, it's not a negative thing, it's just the way it is. So you've got to really, control your environment, control your circle of friends. And that's especially true, not especially true, but, with entrepreneurs, because you're trying to live your dream. And the entrepreneurial ride is a roller coaster ride, because our money is coming and going, and, and the part of the reason for being an entrepreneur is to be able to have a service that costs less than corporate or the big guys. And so then you got to be sure that people still value what your service is that you're giving. And so, so that becomes a tough spot, because the people who are in your circle will value or devalue who you are and your business. My military family, we have to make sure that you control your circle, because especially when, and I'm talking about the ones that are going through the deployment cycle, which is who I work with. If you're getting ready to go, and it's called, giving your life for your country, for service, you're going to put your life on the line. You don't need to have all that negative stuff going on in your mind if you're the military member, when you need to be focusing on what your mission is, to make sure that this is that right way and this is that way, which way you're going, how we're supposed to put this whole plan together to make our mission successful. And then meanwhile, our family members back home, they need to not be busy worried about you, constantly being in harm's way. So family members, that's the thing you got to do, is make sure that you have the right neighbor's noise in your background, and you're controlling your circles so that you don't have the people constantly saying, oh, I saw in the news where soldiers got killed and the airmen got this, and because you don't need that type of negativity, okay? So each of us can go on and figure out where we need to separate the good news from the bad news. And one thing I recognize, I suggest to everybody always is remember that if you must watch the news, don't let the news be the last thing you watch before you go to sleep. There's an S in storms for sleep, because negative news sells. And when you're sleeping, you're in a meditative state. And the last thing that went in is what ruminates overnight. And that's where you can, you have all of the antagonistic dreams and the worry and the stress in your life. So if you watch the late news, watch 30 minutes of comedy or something that's going to make you laugh before you go to sleep, so that you can smile as you lay down and go to sleep. So that's the S. The T, sometimes we tend to think of the trials. What I'd like you to do in storms, by the way, we're breaking down the word storm. Instead of thinking about the trials, think about the testimonies. Because you recognize that you have trials, but don't think about it. You recognize, oh, I had a trial, but let me think about the testimony. In other words, let me look at my track record. Remember, I always tell you that. Trust your track record. Look back and see what you did to overcome that trial. So you don't spend the time on the trial, you spend time on the testimony of how you overcame it. And I say, trust your track record, laugh at your lack record. Because a lot of times the lack record is something where we said, oh, well, I can't do that because I don't have this. In other words, I lack this. I lack the education. I lack the money. I lack the connection. And see, then we end up getting through it. Well, guess what? Obviously, you didn't need to have those things to get through. So therefore, they become a part of your lack record. And now you can laugh at them. You say, whoa, I didn't have this and I still made it. And so therefore, that's why we want to trust our track record, because we look back at the testimonies that we've gotten ourselves through, and yes, we've gotten ourselves through it because you had to have the perseverance. God gave you, He gave you that strength, but if you don't use it, then it makes no difference. I'm looking up because I have one of my scriptures that I keep on the wall, and it's Matthew 4:19 and 20. And it says, Jesus said, come be my disciples, and I will show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and went with him. Now, those of you who know the Bible I read is called the Touch Point Living Bible, and it gives modern day analogies to scripture. So here's the scripture that goes with that. So the lesson from that scripture is commitment. The simplicity of Jesus's words belies their power. The call and promise of Jesus is striking, but remains powerless without a decision on our part. If Peter and Matthew had merely listened and said, that's a very interesting invitation, maybe we can talk about it after fishing season, they would not have become Jesus' disciples. Jesus demands a decision to follow him or to remain where you are. A real decision will lead to action. The disciples left their nets and followed Jesus. Without decision and action, commitment is just an interesting idea. So you can see how that attached to perseverance. I hadn't planned on reading that, I would have had it here in front of me. But yet, commitment is attached to perseverance. And without decision and action, commitment is just an interesting idea. Likewise, perseverance is. Because if you don't make that decision to take action, you won't push yourself through, and that's what perseverance is all about. And again, that's the testimony you get from your track record when you look back and see that all you've done, which moves us right into the next letter, which is O, because sometimes people focus on the obstacles instead of focus on what they did to overcome. That's what the track record is. Yeah, you had obstacles. We all have obstacles in our lives, but guess what? Not 8 times out of 10, the obstacles are the perceived obstacles that we create. Granted, you have to have a game plan where if you're going up against your opponent, you say, okay, well, they're not just going to let me score. I'm going to have to do this. So you don't go out there on the court. Let's use basketball as an example. You don't go out there and just stay focused. They're not going to let me do this. They're not going to let me do that. No, you go out there focused on, here's what I'm going to do. Because I know that the obstacles will be there. So what I want to focus on is what I have to do to overcome them. I've already identified them. Now I'm not going to give them power by constantly thinking about them. I'm going to constantly think about what I have to do to be successful. Excuse me, you can say bless you, that's fine. But what I want to be focusing on is what I have to do to overcome, to get the win that I need and to have the success that I need to have in my life. Again, that's what perseverance is about. Oh God. And when you see what you have to do to overcome and then give yourself for doing it consistently. Now that doesn't mean that I'm allergic to this message. That that means that I don't want to spread the germs. I don't want to spread the news. So the O is for not thinking about the obstacles, not focusing on the obstacles, but focusing on again your track record and what you did to overcome the obstacles and challenges. And whew, that should be it. I'm a 3 sneezes, so I hope that was 3. Yeah, Kathy, I hear you. Okay, so the O. Now, if you're just joining, we're going through the letter storm, the word storm, and showing how we have to go through storms to persevere. So we're up to the R. And the R, sometimes we tend to think about the regrets in terms of the storms that we go through. I don't want you to get focused. Again, don't focus on the regrets. I say focus on your resilience. Because see, I don't do regrets. My faith says that, we like to say, well, if it's for you, God will give it to you, and where I am is where I need to be. We've got all the cliches of faith, but are we living them? See, I live my faith. So I don't do regret. Whatever I did, whoever I was with, that was who I was at that time. And so I made that move. Just like I just finished talking about, without decisions and action, commitment or perseverance is just a good idea. I made a decision to be who I was and do what I was doing based on the information that I had at that time. That's who I was. So I don't regret anybody that's come into my life. I don't get focused on anybody that broke my heart or any opportunity. Oh, that was an opportunity I missed. I blew that. No, that wasn't for me. Who knows what would have happened to my life had I gone that other direction? See, again, that's one of those things that a lot of us get caught up in is, in fact, one of my love for poetry, when people ask me who's my favorite poet, naturally people want me to end up saying somebody modern, but Robert Frost was actually my favorite poet. That's who started me with my poetry. And it was his poem about the two roads converged, and I took the one less something. I don't quote him. I just know the poem. But it talks about how the decisions that we make in life, we may decide to take the road here, and I took the road less traveled. And so, was that the right move? Do you take the road less traveled, or do you take the road that's been more traveled? Now you have to define whether or not you feel like you're following the crowd or blazing a trail. Sometimes it's good to take the road that's been traveled and it's been proven that you can get a certain distance before you have to make a difference. We're coming up to the M in the last letter in storm, which is mindset. But that's what it is. You have to have the positive mindset. So I'm not really following the crowd. I'm letting the crowd make a space for me to have my breakthrough. So it's just like following your blockers in football. You follow your blockers, and then at a certain point you break off. They take care of the obstacles in front of you, and then you break off. Or do I want to take the road less traveled? And there's no proven track record. No one's been down that road, so I'm going to blaze that trail. And that, again, it's not good or bad. It's just a decision that you get to make. Takes you back to the focusing, right, of who you are and on your strengths. And I think I can make this. This grass doesn't look too high for me, and so I will go this route. And that's the difference we make. And that's what we do all the time, y'all. We do it all the time. So now it's just a matter of being more conscious and more cognizant of just how strong and powerful we are to make a difference in our lives as we make a difference in other people's lives. And also, when I think about the R for the resilience, that's where I also go back to our word for today of perseverance. And then I contrast is perseverance versus procrastination. Because that, when you persevere, then that means you didn't procrastinate. Or sometimes you persevere because you procrastinated, and now you got to push a little harder. But it's when you decide to make that difference, that's when you're going to make it. So don't beat yourself up even for procrastination. Because to me, if you complain about yourself being a procrastinator, again, you're giving it power. How about taking procrastination and deciding that it's patience? How about just this, giving yourself credit for being patient? It's just a decision that we make, and it goes back to your neighbor's noise. Are people telling you that you procrastinate, or do they not understand how patient you have to be? They don't have the whole story. They don't know how you're feeling physically, mentally, or spiritually. And sometimes, in fact, when I was in high school, my senior year in high school, we had to write a paper. We had a book called Walden's Retreat, and it's a Walden's Retreat, and it was a book of philosophy. And our homework assignment was to thumb through, pick a passage, and write a paper on it. So I thumbed through and I picked the passage. I never forgot it. My passage was, "There's no companion so companionable as solitude." There's no companion so companionable as solitude. And I wrote this great paper. I got an A+ on it, but also my teacher wrote, Father Farrow, he wrote, he said, "It's hard to believe that someone as outgoing as you could appreciate solitude so much." And excuse me, that's the funny thing, yeah, because I am, an extrovert. But then as you grow in life, you start to see, if you've ever done the 4 lenses, when you look at what your color is and your personality color, and what they show us as you break down, as you debrief the 4 lenses, personality styles, or whichever it is, because I'm outgoing, well, people who are as outgoing as I am, to recharge, to get my energy, I need solitude. See, I don't need to always be around people. So for me to be able to give the way I do, I need some self-time. And guess what? We all do. Regardless of where you fall in any of those scales and any of that research, you need that self-time so that you can recharge. And recharging is one of the things I talk about in my stress mastery education. I've been certified with Dr. Heidi Hanner as a stress mastery educator. And notice the key is we're not talking about stress management, but stress mastery. Mastering your stress, recognizing that stress is a necessary part of your life. So how you choose to look at it will help you figure out how to manage it. Because isn't everything about getting to that coping strategy? How do you take care of things? How do you master what you need to go through? How can you control the circles that I talked about if you're not mastering your life? And so therefore you're mastering who you are. So you have to have that focus on who you are. They all go together. That's why sometimes, even though letters and words are in synchronic order, life doesn't happen that way. Life doesn't happen in this nice, plan A, plan B, plan C. Sometimes, even when people ask me about writing, I say, you know what, just write. You may not write your poem or your story from chapter 1. What you first write may end up being the middle, or it might end up being the end. You don't know. And a lot of times, it probably ends up being the end, because the reason you want to write the story is because you see the testimony. You know what? People need to know about what I went through. So really the first thing that you've got in your mind is the ending, or at least the continuance, because that you're not saying that it's the end. You're saying, here's what's going on now, and here's where I'm going to take it to the next level. So so again, in terms of the resilience, think about perseverance versus procrastination, and wipe that out by looking at patience. How patient have you been with yourself? And your patience will determine who you bring in as your messengers, because it talks about where you see yourself going. How long will you let that person stay in your life to deliver the message that they've come to deliver? Because all of us have a message that we deliver. And so the last letter in STORM is M. And I don't even have one of the, not the negative words, but I want to just give you positive words on the M, because I want to give you mindset and messenger, which we've already talked about, both of them. And the mindset is that I have to always tell you, I'm not up 365 24/7. I don't think you can be in a good mood 365 24/7. I can't. But I'm up more than I'm down. I'm positive more than I'm negative, and I'm going forward more than I'm going backwards. And there's nothing wrong with reframing that going backwards, to recognize that every now and then you just have to step back and take a look at your work. It brings all those letters together. Step back and give yourself credit for what you've overcome. We step back and look at all the decisions. We made a lot of great decisions in our life, but we focus on the bad ones, which brings us to the regret, the trials, the stumbles. Move those out of the way and look at the strengths, look at the successes, look at the testimonies, look at what you've overcome, look at your resilience. Step back and take a look at your success and then give yourself credit and celebrate. Remember I was saying when we overcome a storm, we don't just want to, oh, I did it. Yeah, no, but do step back. Okay, I did it. Okay, now that gears me up because another storm is coming, and now that I know that I got over this one, maybe I can get through this next one and to the celebration sooner. It depends on what the storm is. You can't go through all of your storms at a fast pace. Some storms take a little longer, which is the patience versus perseverance versus procrastination. One of the things I'll always do when someone says they had a death in the family or they have an illness, I'm word sensitive. I don't say I wish you a speedy recovery. I always say I wish you a smooth recovery at a time when speed cannot heal. So again, it's thinking about who you are, and that's why that M, the mindset, is so many of us feel that we have to be right. I don't have to be right. I have to be sporty. I have to make sure that I'm dealing and sending out a message of what I believe so that I don't practice what I preach what I practice. How often do we give someone advice that we wouldn't actually take? And how often have you taken advice from someone because you didn't recognize that they wouldn't actually do that? See why the focus on you is so important? Once you know who you are, you know who to keep in your life, because a lot of times you can't stop from bringing someone in your life or them affecting your life, but who are you going to keep in your life so that you can continue to grow and be who you are? So don't focus on being right. Focus on being you. And in focusing on being you, you should be able and willing to therefore allow someone else to focus on being who they are. And so we can both be right. It depends on whether you're on the 9 side of the 6 or the 6 side of the 9. It's always our perspective, taking us right back to the beginning of this message. It's the perspective that we come from that makes the difference. So it doesn't matter what type of a house you build. Keep building your houses and then finding the mindset to share the new storms and then deepening your faith. Keep building your houses, finding the mindset to share you and the new storms that you overcome so that you can deepen your faith, because that's what's important. It's also important is deepening your faith so that you can have the perseverance that you need, because it's hard being you. And you need to be willing to persevere, to be yourself. Be persistent about being and sharing who you are with the world. Because the world, as you know, in my belief, is life is about going from one puzzle to the next. Either small, medium, or large piece of the puzzle in all of your family, social, and business interactions. Yet, no matter what puzzle piece size you see yourself as, without you, the puzzle is incomplete. And that's why my company is called The Top Line. And the top line is how I feel affects other people. So it's what you do when you're in a good mood. Doesn't that affect the people around you? When they're in a bad mood, hasn't it affected you? So recognize that you are an important piece of everyone's puzzle. I certainly thank you for being a part of my puzzle. Please go to sportyking.com and see other ways that you can support my message and help me spread your message as well. Always remember that you can put comments in the box or inbox me or send me a post, whatever, and give me a topic that you'd like me to discuss, and I'd be happy to put that on the schedule for Glue Wednesday. But this has been another Glue Wednesday as we close out the month of July. I look forward to opening up the best month of the year. That's August. That's my month that I'm going to hit my 64th year. I'm going to start my 64th year on this earth, because I look at the 365 as being the end of one. So I'll be one again on August 27th. All right. So thanks again for joining me on Glue Wednesday. Remember, keep it together. Don't worry about getting over, because GLUE, God's love, undoes everything. Whatever you're going through, remember, you got that self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going through. This is not going to stop me, and it's not going to stick me forever, but I'm going to go through. Why? Because I'm going to persevere. I've got what it takes to overcome the difficulties, because I've got the strength, I've got the testimonies. I'm an overcomer. I have the resilience, and I have the right mindset to keep moving forward and making a difference. God bless you all. I'm going to answer all of the comments when once I close out this broadcast. and be happy to get back to you. Okay, over and out. Ciao.